Yo, this is the Scarcity Studios YouTube channel. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. And our sponsors are Alpha Claims and Hire Birmingham, the leading and best accident management company. Get a replacement car anywhere in 1 hour. Jodie Chesney, the 17-year-old Girl Scout that was killed in Amy's Park in the Harold Hill area of London on March the 1st this year. 2 teenagers have been convicted of her murder and sentenced to life. Svensson Ong-a-Kwie will serve a minimum of 26 years. Aaron Isaacs, 17, will serve a minimum of 18 years. This is a story of revenge and how people can just get caught up in the middle of it. So rest in peace to Jodie Chesney, and this is her story. Jodie had just finished 6th form and walked her dog and then went to meet her boyfriend of 4 months to go and meet up with friends, and then they went to the park. Their intention was to smoke cannabis and listen to music, and they actually purchased cannabis regularly from the teenager Svensson, who would then go on to kill Jodie. But this was not why Jodie died. It was 9:20 p.m. on the 1st of March. It had been dark for some time. It was then that Jodie's boyfriend Eddie Coyle noticed 2 figures coming out of the darkness towards them in the park. Eddie says there was 2 males, one was taller than the other, and this male swung his right arm in the direction of Jodie's back. Jodie screamed and then they ran off into the darkness. Within moments, Jodie was falling and Eddie Coyle grabbed her as she did. That was when a friend noticed she'd suffered a serious injury. The police and ambulance soon arrived, but by the time they did, Jodie was showing no signs of life. She was placed in an ambulance and taken to the hospital, and doctors were dispatched to meet the ambulance at the Esso garage in Gants Hill due to how traumatic her injuries were and how quickly she was deteriorating. None of Jodie's friends had the slightest idea who would want to kill her or cause any harm to any of them. So when the police launched an investigation, initially it looked like a really hard case, and the first break in the case was from a man called Andre Mihal. He was driving his car on the evening near the area of the park. When he drove up the road, he'd noticed that the road was blocked by a stationary car. There was 2 males in it. He didn't think nothing of it, but he just chose to carry on anyway down a different route. But the following afternoon, he heard about what happened inside the park, and he went to Romford police station. He told the police he was very good at identifying cars, and he said it was an old black Vauxhall Corsa, possibly a 2008 plate. He said there was 4 defendants in the car that he seen, 2 people running from the park and getting into the car, and this was what led the investigation to now gather pace. And the police had suspects, they had a time, they had a vehicle, and they just had to try and piece it together now to be able to try and build a case. Svensson Ong-a-Kwie, the one that killed her, was a promising boxer. He had actually been training not long before. He'd broke his fingers during training and had to take some time off, and during that time he got involved in selling drugs on the street. His relationship with his mother deteriorated and he actually was violent to her. At this point, that's when he got involved in county lines, and he spent a significant amount of time in different areas selling drugs for other people. But when he was caught and sentenced, they was quite lenient to him and they gave him a hostel to stay in. They didn't send him to prison initially, and this is where he was staying when he committed the crime. The driver of the car, Manuel Petrovic, had actually won thousands of pounds shortly afterwards, but then he was robbed inside a William Hill in Romford in Collier's Row. He phoned the police to report this crime, but he also reported the Vauxhall Corsa that he was driving on the night as missing. He said that he'd been stolen, and then he said that a white male came over to him, punched him and stole his money. He was alleged to have drove the car to the murder, but he claims no knowledge of what Svensson and Aaron Isaacs was planning to do when they got to the park. Several of Jodie's friends and even family, her cousin, testified about the drugs they used to buy from Svensson and his friends. They talk about phone messages talking about Pineapple Express and Mango Haze cannabis, 20s, 40s and 50s, and also cocaine for sale, which they described as power, and they would get to anywhere on the hill, which was an abbreviation for Harold Hill, and holler with the dollar. Jurors heard the message came from a dealer called Spencer. Goes on to say late in the case, people called him Spencer. They couldn't pronounce Svensson. When Mr. Kane Compton, who was with Jodie on the night, rang up Spencer for drugs at the time, he turned up to the park with the 17-year-old boy, Aaron Isaacs. The pair met and did the drug deal, and it was completed through a taxi window shortly before 8:30 p.m, the prosecutor said. It is at this point, they said, that Spencer became annoyed and contacted another suspect. This is Manuel Petrovic, the driver of the car on the night, who was living in Collier Row in East London. Svensson and two boys aged 16 and 17, one of them being Aaron Isaacs, went to his hostel to get a knife and a series of calls between Spencer and Petrovic. It is claimed at 9 p.m. Petrovic agreed to take Spencer to the park. They went and picked up the other two defendants, and by 9:10 the car was seen on number plate recognition on the A12. 2 minutes later, Spencer switched off his phone. At 9:19, CCTV picks up the black car approaching Retford Road. A few moments later, another camera picks up the accused killers walking towards the playground. At 9:20, Jodie is stabbed in the park and soon loses her life in the arms of her boyfriend. Petrovic, the driver, was still receiving text messages at 9:20 at the time that Jodie died, but his phone was not active again until 24 minutes past 9. The prosecution said there was no activity on either side of the time of the murder on any of their phones, but his phone was not active again until 24 minutes past. Petrovic and Svensson went on throughout the night after, meeting people for drug deals and using their phones to arrange them drug deals. The police arrested Isaacs and Svensson on the 10th of March after a police chase through gardens.
He's over a fence here. Someone.
There he is.
He's on that roof left. Oh, he's through the conservatory.
Through the conservatory next door. Police officer! There we are! Hands where you are! Police officer, do not move down! Show me your hands! Show me your hands now! Get over here now! I'm aside.
While in custody, Petrovic was recorded during a meeting in prison with a visitor. Petrovic said to his visitor, they went to bang out the ops, but they got the wrong people. When he was asked how he knew that, he said Svensson got stabbed a couple of months before, and this was to do with that. Someone gave him the drop or a tip-off that was at this park, and he went there in retaliation. Jurors identified two unidentified males in the park on the night that was sat next to Jodie for a small amount of time. It is suggested that they was involved in the killing. Petrovic went on to explain about the conversation that he had with Svensson in the cab, telling him to come and see him ASAP, and all of this was recorded in the interview room. He then discussed what he could potentially get in regard to his involvement in the case and being the driver at the time. Petrovic had actually had trials for West Ham United. He actually was a promising footballer before he got involved with drugs. And Petrovic's claim throughout the whole case was that he was just the driver. He had no idea what happened and that he was just doing a friend a favour. He also told the jurors on the 5th day of the trial that while he was held at maximum security prison Belmarsh in southeast London, he was attacked on the 3rd of March. He said that rumours were spreading around the custody block in Belmarsh. He was ambushed by prisoners and his face was slashed with a tin, and they punched and kicked him repeatedly. Croatian-born Manuel agreed he was attacked by jailmates when they discovered the nature of the murder that he was suspected of, the murder of a 17-year-old girl. That Svensson actually turned against him in prison. He joined up with the other prisoners and told them it was actually Petrovic that had done this. And Svensson also did this with Aaron Isaacs, the 17-year-old, also convicted for the murder. He blamed him during the court case when he gave evidence. Svensson said in his evidence, "I did not kill Jodie Chesney," as he stood in the witness box wearing a blue shirt, grey tie and black trousers. Svensson named the youth whose identity couldn't be named at the time, but it was Aaron Isaacs that he pointed at, and he said that it was Aaron Isaacs that did it. This part of the evidence, I think the prosecution wanted Svensson to keep talking, because the more he spoke, the more he put himself where the prosecution wanted him to be. The person that stabbed Jodie had already been identified by Jodie's boyfriend. He was meant to be taller, and out of the two of them, Svensson was the tallest. Svensson agreed to being in the park at the time, but he just said he didn't stab her. But the prosecution have a witness that says that he did. This story just goes to show about how quickly something can escalate, how you can become involved in a situation that has nothing to do with you. And as Aaron Isaacs learns today, he's now going to serve life in prison for a murder that somebody else did, but the judge described him as a willing supporter. The same man that blamed him in court for the murder. Aaron Isaacs was in care most of his life. He didn't even know his date of birth or the identity of his father. He had been rehoused 4 times for disobeying social services by sneaking out to visit his mother, who suffers from mental health problems. He left school with no qualifications and was introduced to Svensson, who then got him involved in stealing mopeds and eventually dealing drugs. And then his life just escalated to him being in his park on this night with Svensson when Svensson decided to stab this young girl. He claimed that he was in the dark as to what was going to happen and he didn't even know that they had weapons. But when they was both arrested, Svensson and Aaron Isaacs, they was both caught with knives as well. So this is a terrible story with a lot of lessons that can be learned from it. Do not involve yourself in other people's problems and try and stay focused on your goals and ambitions and don't stray from the path. So I really appreciate you joining me today. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe, and rest in peace to Jodie Chesney. Thank you.